which are strung together that are then played at a high speed, which then gives the illusion of movement. These images were originally captured on film reels like these ones here, and the reels can then be used to project the image. So in order to talk about the history of movies and cinema, we must first talk about the history of photography. So to capture an image, a camera is used, and the very first cameras that were used a very basic system which was called camera obscura, so like this. So basically it was a small opening into a fully darkened area or room, and the light would travel through in a straight line, and it would be projected onto the back surface of the area as seen. So, but it'd be upside down in a mirror image. So what happened? Yeah, the light enters, and yeah, this method was used for hundreds of years by artists and scientists. So the major problem with this method, obviously, is that the image is only temporary, and that there's no actual permanent way of keeping the image there. So over time, many different methods were used, such as like mixtures of different light-sensitive chemicals were used to try capture the image and keep it permanently. Then in 1827, the first still surviving photograph was taken. It was taken by this man, a French inventor, in 1827, and it goes under the name View from the Window at Le Gras. As you can see from the image, it is quite unrefined and primitive, and the lines are very blurry. But the image was a breakthrough for its time. The image was created on a metal plate, this one here, and the plate was covered in light-sensitive asphalt that had light focused on it using the camera obscura method. The exposure time is estimated to be over a few days, and that's why you can see like contradictions, like kind of shadows all over the image. Basically, the areas that the light was the strongest, it caused the asphalt to stick to the metal plate, and the areas that were darkest didn't stick, and it could be easily washed away. So they're washed away, and this is just an enhanced inverted image version of it. Then between 1827 and 1838, a huge leap was made in photography when Louis Daguerre took this photo called Boulevard du Temple. It is the first photograph to contain people in it, but due to the long exposure time, you can actually tell that the people in the left foreground here are actually kind of blurry because they completely moved during the exposure. But the first ever film to portray motion was created by Edward Muybridge in 1878, and it was appropriately called The Horse in Motion. It is a series of 15 still images which was taken over 15 different cameras, and the cameras were triggered by tripwires that were on the racetrack. So as you can see here, the setup. Yeah. Muybridge may have been one of, and also later on, Muybridge followed up this study here of the horse in motion with a few different other studies which use similar methods of capturing multiple images, like showing motion. So this is basically some of the, these are considered the first motion pictures. Muybridge may have been one of the first to experiment with moving images, but we can't talk about the history of film without mentioning Auguste and Louis Lumiere, also known as the Lumiere Brothers. Not only did they invent the very first projector called the cinematograph, as you can see there, they also were responsible for some of the very first motion picture cameras that were used to capture some of the first movies. Films that they made recorded everyday French life, such as the arrival of a train, a game of cards, the feeding of a baby, and activities on the city street. The Lumiere brothers went on to develop the first practical photographic color process, which was called the Lumiere autogram. Basically, how it worked was that potato starch, tiny granules of potato starch, were smeared all over a glass plate, but the potato starch was mixed with 3 different colors of dyes. So the dyes, they're dyed green, violet, and red, as you can see. And when the starch was hit by light, it was triggered and revealed the color. And the reason why it's dyed green, violet, and red is because spectrum that light is made up of is red, green, and blue. Red, green. Yeah. Yeah. Although Lumiere Brothers invented a practical method for color photography, the first color photo was actually taken in 1861, and it used a method called the Tricolor System, and the Tricolor System is actually how all color film today is all based on it. So basically what he did was he got 3 different color filters and put them over the camera. So he got a red and a green and a blue, and he took a photo of the same exact photo of a ribbon, and then he dyed those 3 transparent black and white negatives, the corresponding colors, and when they were laid over each other, they created the fully complete colored image on the right. Further developments in color photography resulted in the very first known example of a color movie in 1902. It was created by Edward Raymond Turner, who was a pioneer British inventor and cinematographer. So he shot shot 3 color reels at the same time, which using the same tricolor method to make it look like it was colored. But the only issue was that he wasn't able to project the 3 rolls at the same time, because he wasn't able to design a projector that was able to perfectly overlay them. So, and it was only recently projected successfully in 2012 when it was discovered by the National Media Museum. Another key character involved in the cinema was Georges Méliès. He was a French illusionist and film director who led many technical and narrative developments in the earliest days of cinema. By the time he had left film production, he had created some 500 films. Méliès' interest in cinema began when he attended a special private demonstration of the Lumiere Brothers cinematograph. Méliès' fascination by the idea of cinema. Méliès was fascinated by the idea of cinema, and he designed his own film camera based on the Lumiere's design. Méliès is known as the father of special effects in movies because his films were some of the first to actually ever use them. Méliès was actually a magician before he went into film, and you can see that he uses many tricks and impossible events that you would see in a magic show in his movies. For example, using multiple exposures, he created his film a one-man band in which he played 7 different characters simultaneously. Méliès is also famous for his work on movies such as A Trip to the Moon from 1902, The Impossible Voyage from 1904, and The Devil's Castle. His films are notable for their intricately painted background sets. A few of Méliès' films are actually colored, but to achieve this, he actually hired hundreds of workers to painstakingly hand paint each of the frames. So as you can see, you finish up with something like that. Nowadays, we often take it for granted that nearly every single film we have has sound in it, but obviously back then films didn't have sound in them. It wasn't practical or even possible to have sound in movies.